Hello and welcome back to Spreadguard Plays Probability Zero. It's been a while since I've played this, but playing Avalanche, Super Avalanche, was actually kind of reminding me of this game, and so I revisited it, and I wanted to talk a little bit about sort of coming back to it and my thoughts about returning to this game, because it's in some ways very similar to Super Avalanche. It has a lot of the same kinds of things in it. It has this same sort of, you get upgrades and you're traveling vertically, and it has this really strong endurance aspect, but it also has a lot of things that are really different from Super Avalanche, and I really think the two games complement each other in a really interesting way. This game is so much more about precision than speed. It's so much about these very tight, difficult angles, and just having really unforgiving hitboxes, and hitboxes that don't give you a lot of room for error. And there's just all of this kind of tactical stuff, and it's very satisfying to do something right. It has very much this sense of doing one thing right is rewarding because it's so difficult. Whereas Super Avalanche kind of has more of a feel that you do lots and lots of things, and you have to sort of be really consistent and keep up with this very fast-paced game. It doesn't have as much of a sense of, like, every little gain is a big gain. And so that's something that I really like about this game, especially when things go wrong like that. No, I mean, I do like it when things go wrong. I think that it's part of the charm of this game is how rapidly things can fall apart. And this game just feels so much more kind of deliberate and methodical. And I love that. And I love Super Avalanche as well. And I think complementing each other is really the best I can say to that, is just that they each bring something different to my gaming experience. And I love that. I love that there are so many different kinds of games that I can play in so many different ways. And there was a discussion not too long ago on one of the subreddits that I post in. Whoa, that was an infected one, I did not even realize. So there was a discussion about the idea of continues and limited lives. And this is one of the games that I kind of thought about, because what I was arguing basically was that consistency itself is a virtue that games can kind of push you to work on. And this is a game that really demands such consistency just by punishing every mistake and really only rewarding doing everything right. And I really like that. I like games that have kind of more leeway in them. But I really like that there's a game that I really enjoy that is so much about enduring and being consistent for as long as you can. And one of the things that I see as a limitation in this game is just how short sessions end up being, because it's so unforgiving that you don't have the kind of extended play sessions that would really try your consistency. One of the things that I was actually talking about today with, every Sunday I have coffee with my father, and we talk about all sorts of interesting things. He goes running with a UCC minister and helps him put together his sermons. And then I was actually, when I stopped by my parents to go with my dad to coffee, I actually also talked to my mom about a sermon that she's writing for her Covenant group that was all about forgiveness. And so we talked about I talked to my dad about trust because that's what his friend was working on, and then I talked to my mom about forgiveness, and we had some kind of interesting discussions about both ideas. And that's actually kind of what prompted me to pick this game up again. I'd been thinking about it because of the Super Avalanche and thinking about other endurance high-score games that I enjoy. But what really prompted me to pick it up today and want to play it today was the discussion about forgiveness and kind of my thoughts about self-forgiveness. And I felt like this game is really a place where I can think about the idea of self-forgiveness and sort of have I talk about games kind of being a laboratory setting in which I can examine my own emotions. And this game is really someplace that I can examine the idea of self-forgiveness because there's so much challenge and there's so many ways that I can make mistakes. And especially when I'm talking, I tend to make a lot of mistakes. And so it's kind of a way to just try to remind myself over and over. You know, I had a teacher who would always put it as, be gentle to yourself, which I think is from a poem that he really liked called Desiderata. I don't remember if that's where it's from, but I that's my memories that he took it from that poem. And so I will link that poem in the description and you can see for yourself whether or not it actually contains that line. But anyway, my point was, you know, you can say be gentle with yourself is one way to put it. In this the sermon that my mom was working on, she talked a lot about the importance, or I guess sermon's not really the right word for it because it was kind of more of a group discussion leading. But she talked about the importance of forgiveness and how forgiveness is a gift to ourselves and that we should be kind of give freely with our forgiveness as much as we can. And what she didn't include that I kind of thought of later when she was reading it back to me was this idea of when you are not able to forgive. And that's something that people run into sometimes. They just get into situations where, for whatever reason, they're not able to extend forgiveness. And that can be because forgiveness is really a process that you can have the intention to forgive, and you need that, but you also kind of have to have this sort of process of forgiving that it has to be intentional, but it's not completely voluntary. And so kind of the addendum that I wanted to add on that I thought of later was, and when you can't forgive yourself, because sometimes you're not able to, sometimes you're not ready, sometimes it's just not what you're capable of. And we all kind of are going through life being able to do different things at different times. And so it's important to remember that none of us can do everything that we want to do. None of us can even do everything that we think we should do. And I think that games are a great way of examining that because in this run, I have actually pulled off some things that I think are really cool, and that if I could pull them off every time, I would be unbeatable. I've pulled off some stuff that really requires a lot of precision and dexterity, and I love doing that. But I am limited in so many different ways that it's kind of... If I said that I had to always do these things, I would never accomplish anything. And so, just by playing this kind of silly game of going down this column and attacking these little monsters, I kind of have a way of looking at my life in this sort of weird little microcosm of just I'm not even sure like why it makes sense, but I'm so glad that it does. And at the same time that all that is going on, there's this very, very real point of view, because I don't always play games like that. I love to talk about playing games like that because I value that aspect of games so much. But there's also the aspect of I just want to do cool stuff and have fun, and this game's really good for that as well. It's very satisfying when I manage to land a nice shot, when I manage to jump over stuff and land very precise, very quick star throws and punches, and weave in between monsters. You know, that it feels good to accomplish that. And so there's that whole other dimension. You don't have to constantly be examining yourself to have fun. And I think that's something that I can forget sometimes, that is a very real part of the joy of gaming. Is I remember one of my friends described when I was first I've mentioned, I haven't talked about it much in a while, but I have mentioned that I was in my 20s before I really got into gaming. And I remember having a friend kind of talking to me about my discovery of gaming as a hobby. And he said, you discovered the kind of mindless joy that can only be found in video games. And I don't know if it can only be found in video games, because the world is really big, but there is a very distinct kind of pleasure that I was very reluctant to describe as mindless, because I had this kind of idea in my head that mindless meant bad, and that what I had experienced was very good. But I've kind of realized that that was this prejudice that I had, and that I actually, it very much is this kind of sense of no mind that is the way that I would describe it, kind of coming from more of a Buddhist background. And it's this very sort of in the moment sense of just pure pleasure that games can bring. And I think that's the first time I have beaten one of those chompers in a long time. So that was a really nice accomplishment. I love the way that games can bring all of these little accomplishments, all of these things that we do that are difficult, and then we do them, and they're so satisfying. And I think that is actually something that can be really dangerous about video games as well, because, you know, I have gotten very badly addicted to video games. That was too bad that I got trapped there. That was a really good run. That was a really successful run. And I really enjoyed it, and I really enjoyed the stuff that we talked about. And I hope that you did too. So thank you very much for watching, and have a great rest of your day.